Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. I have Mitch Russo, Mindful Guidance LLC. RussoPlus.com is the website. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Michael. Great to be here.
All right. I'm glad you're here. Mitch, you partner with entrepreneurs doing 20,000 to several million and help them make their company into an 8-figure sales vehicle. Tell me how you got started, and then let's walk through some of the processes that you do to get them from here to there.
Sure. Well, I got started by building my own company. That's how most of us do. And my interest in business goes back to when I was a little boy. I did all the things that us kids do. We shoveled snow and we sold seeds door to door, and et cetera. But for me, probably my biggest venture as a young man was to create a rock band in high school. And as non-intuitive it might sound, is I think I learned most of everything I needed to know about being a CEO by doing just that, by building a rock band in high school. And I learned all about PR, I learned all about pricing, I learned all about testimonials and how to get them, et cetera, et cetera. So I took that experience, and later, as my career advanced, I found myself creating and building a software company. And that software company was just my partner and I, and $5,000. We scaled that to 100 people and sold that company for 8 figures. So, and that at a very relatively young age. I started that company when I was 28, and we concluded the sale 9 years later. And then I moved to Dallas, Texas to work with the parent company who bought us, and I became the chief operating officer of that parent company for their U.S. division. So beyond that, I was in my early 40s. I was already independently wealthy multimillionaire, but I was too young to retire, of course, and so I started doing consulting work. And it's 20 plus years later, and I'm still doing consulting work. I built a company with an old buddy of yours, Tony Robbins. You know Tony, of course. Tony and Chet Holmes were my partners, and the three of us put a company together called Business Breakthroughs International, and we scaled that to well over 25 million a year in revenue. And the only thing that stopped us was my dear friend and partner Chet Holmes passing away. So when Chet died, it was really for me the end of an era, and Tony understood, and I went my separate way at that point. From there, I wrote 2 books. One initially when the split up, when I left Business Breakthroughs. That book was called Invisible Organization, and it was all about, it's the blueprint of how I built a virtual company with over 300 people, and then made that company very, very scalable because of the virtual aspect of how it operated. My second book just came out a few weeks ago, and it's called Power Tribes, and it's all about how to utilize the certification model to build very powerful, large sales forces from existing customers and clients that pay you instead of you paying them, which is always a novel concept. So we actually, in my software company, we had 350 certified consultants who paid us every year to be and stay certified, and yet they were our 3rd largest sales channel. So it's a clever strategy. It's very effective. It must be carefully executed, or it can backfire badly. And many of the companies that you know employ certification, like Infusionsoft, Salesforce, HubSpot, Microsoft, Intuit, all have certification programs and more or less follow the pathways that I talk about in the book.
Number one, I'd like to see the book. That sounds like something that's a must-read for definitely for us and for many of the people that come through our show. But getting into this now with your current company, what types of companies are you working with now, and what really drives your passion to pick a company that you decide you want to work with?
So I have a tendency to find myself attracted to technology companies because that's my background. So when I work with a technology entrepreneur, I feel like we can communicate at full speed because I understand them both emotionally as well as the metrics and nature of their business. Many technology companies are founded by techies, if you will, and are very comfortable with the technology, very comfortable, even in many cases, with selling, but less comfortable with scaling and in particular management. So as you know, management is an evolved and developed skill. None of us come out of the womb as a C-level manager. We have to be trained. We have to learn. We have to make mistakes and stumble in order to truly get the experience that we need. I have personally crashed several companies based on my prior activity by being dumb. But it's the only way to learn sometimes, or it's the only way I was able to learn given the resources and the positioning that I was in at the time. So my special niche, again, is helping technology companies. My partner, William DeTemple, and I partner together, and his specialty is in helping companies reach 100 million in revenue. He is a corporate governance expert. He is a master at using the cap table and other financial instruments to build wealth for company owners and individuals.
Okay. Real quick before we close, because I want you to come back. I sense that they barely scratched the surface of the iceberg, and talk about a lot of case studies that you've gone through so that we can impart your wisdom to the rest of our audience. But Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins played a strong part in your company and your success. Before we close, can you give us some insights that they brought to you that you were able to parlay into your success?
Oh, there's so many. I almost don't know where to start. So probably the one thing that I loved about Tony and the way that Tony communicated was that he never made anyone feel insubstantial. Everyone that he dealt with felt as if they were not only special, but important. And that's a beautiful way of dealing with people. And Tony was the master at dealing with people that way. But he had a saying that I loved, and that is, when we work in an environment, when we create something, and particularly when we're generating leads, we eat the whole elephant. And the reason that he used to use that phrase is because we were generating 3,000 leads a week coming off of the radio. I personally spent millions of dollars advertising on the radio. I spent the company's money. I want to make it clear, I didn't spend my own money, but I spent the company's money advertising on the radio, driving leads. But here's the interesting thing. We were able to close 19% of those qualified leads on the first phone call. And when you have such a high closing rate on a product, the 80% seems almost insignificant. But when you eat the whole elephant, you realize that the 80% also represents a huge opportunity. And so Tony made sure we never lost sight of the opportunity of the ones who didn't close. So there's an example of a little bit of wisdom from Tony.
I'm all over that. I appreciate that. Mitch, I want you to come back soon as you can because I have more questions for you. I just only have so much time to do that today, but I'm glad that we at least had this amount of time to get you on the show and at least have our first conversation with each other.
Absolutely, Michael. And I'm available when you need me. Let me know and we'll set something up.
That sounds great. All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.